For this one, I wanted to talk about something kind of simple, and that is what I wear or what I bring with me as I'm going into some of the most dangerous abandoned buildings in the United States. So these are the areas in Marlboro East in Kansas City or JBL, St. Louis, Washington Park, Chicago, downtown Memphis, pretty much all of Newark. I got a thing about Newark. Middle East, Baltimore, the South neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. These areas are really, they can be quite dangerous. If I think of it from a world perspective, I still consider them dangerous. So, considering I've been to some of the more dangerous areas, you could say Afghanistan, Palestine during war, Ouagadougou is not, particularly safe, Juba, South Sudan, some areas of Port Moresby, some cities in South Africa, Durban, Pretoria, Joburg. So if I think of these cities from a global perspective, they're still dangerous. In a different way, though, like there's areas in the Middle East, Baghdad, Kabul, that no matter what you do, Mogadishu, Somalia, no matter what you do, you could still fall victim to kidnapping or meet a demise that you can't prepare for. And look, I am far from saying if you go to Mogadishu, Somalia, you're going to get kidnapped. Or if you go to Baghdad, you're going to get kidnapped. In fact, Baghdad is really safe now in 2025. I'm just saying, in some of these areas that are very unstable, Port-au-Prince is a good example. Haiti, Port-au-Prince. It's a failed state, so there's no one there to protect you in some situations. The government has lost the ability to protect civilians. You could say that about Somalia, that the government has lost their ability to protect civilians. The United States is not a failed state. We do have police departments. We do have rule of law. But it gets very shady in some of these areas. And thinking of my time in Middle East Baltimore and JBL and Washington Park, Kensington or Kenzo, I don't see the patrolling of police that I would expect to see. I would expect to see that these areas are highly patrolled because they have a lot of issues. I find that they're under patrolled. And I don't know the reason. I'm not going to speculate. This isn't about the deep-rooted issues in the United States regarding violence and crime. That's a whole other podcast. That's a whole other channel. That's a whole other book, novel, series, Netflix special. Yeah. I'm here to talk about what I bring into these places. So I do have some stuff here. And if you're listening on podcasts, yeah, you're not going to get the visual, are you? So the visual will be on YouTube. And I would recommend not continuing this podcast if you're just listening to the voice. But I've had a lot of questions about what I bring with me for my safety. I'm not going to go so much into equipment like headlamps. I have a headlamp and I have a flashlight. Like no brainer kind of stuff. I'm more talking for protection because, one, you should never enter a building that you don't know who's inside for your own safety. Two, you should not be entering abandoned buildings because you don't belong there. Three, entering abandoned buildings is putting unnecessary risk to your body. Having said that, I do have a background in being in very troubled areas for the last 13, 14 years. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying I'm used to these situations. And I can keep my head about myself, and generally I'm still alive, right? I'm still here. So I'm at least doing a couple things right. So I do bring a belt. I have something of a tactical belt that, goes around my waist, obviously. So this one here, so the belt buckle kind of goes here. This one here would be bear mace. So I carry bear mace with me. And who am I protecting myself against? Anyone and anything. I think the displaced get a bad reputation, homeless folks, as being particularly scary. I don't share that thought. One thing I do bring with me is 21s. I've said this in other podcasts. Or, something around that. 10 ones and a 5, whatever I have for loose change, or small bills, because I do come across a lot of displaced folks, homeless folks. And something that is helpful is to be able to give a couple dollars and say, hey, want a coffee or something, to try and diffuse situations. Because when you're going into these abandoned buildings, remember that you may be going to somebody's home. They consider it their home. Even in these abandoned buildings that are slanted, the windows are blown out, the front door's boarded, the basement windows are boarded, and they're a little precarious, right? They're a little unsafe inside. Folks will live there. It's protection from the elements. It's a little bit of privacy, isn't it? Maybe better than sleeping outside or having to deal with people that may cast judgments. It adds privacy for a life that is probably very public. If you're homeless, you got to think you don't have a lot of privacy in that situation. If you're displaced, you don't have a lot of privacy, do you? So what privacy you do have, you're going to covet. You're going to protect. You're going to see that as a high value item. So I do come across a lot of homeless and displaced folks. And sometimes you can diffuse the situation quite easily. And the homeless folks are quite docile, and they just are sort of maybe surprised you're there, or sometimes they don't even react. They assume you're displaced also. I've come across folks sleeping on mattresses, and they wake up, look over, and then just go right back to bed. They're not particularly troubled or alarmed. Then there's the folks that get a little alarmed, and I can diffuse that with maybe giving them a couple dollars. I have no problem giving them a couple dollars anyways. Their life is harder than mine. Well, you never know what's going on inside, do you? But on its face, they have a difficult life, I would imagine. But the idea, some YouTubers out there, is one particular channel I'm thinking of, really does a good job of demonizing the homeless, and I think that's unfair and ridiculous. And you're preying upon a very vulnerable set of people, anyways. They're already down and out. They're already possibly suffering from some serious mental issues and some drug addiction issues. And you're preying on a vulnerable part of our population. And it doesn't sit well with me. The displaced can be dangerous, 100%. It is what it is. I'm not going to pretend that every homeless folk and every homeless person that you meet does not have bad intentions, because they do sometimes. Sometimes very wealthy people have bad intentions. What's the difference, right? Everybody is a human being that's flawed. So I don't demonize the displaced, but you need to be careful, because there's often underlying issues that can set these folks off. So it is wise to not do anything regarding abandoned buildings, except for maybe take some pictures of the outside if you're a photographer. Inside, you shouldn't be in there. Anyways, so what do I bring? As I said, so I have this belt on my left side, and I always put things where I can remember where they are by muscle memory. My left side is bear mace, and that's for distance, because bear mace can squirt a pretty heavy stream, a good 20 feet, 25 feet. I have had to use my bear mace in situations in abandoned buildings. And this is when it's clear that somebody is not walking towards me to find what's going on, but has an intention of causing harm, but either by what they're saying to me, or if they're coming me at a high rate of speed. I've had both. I've had situations where what they're saying to me, and I've had people coming at me quickly. And in those situations, bear mace is helpful. I try not to, in situations where they're just quickly running at me or saying something that is very threatening. I try to spray kind of the area, not like direct hits on the face, because they haven't caused any harm, right? They may have intentions to, but they're not. And the very few times I've had to use bear mace, it's been successful. Here's the thing with any, weapon. You have the chance of escalating the situation, don't you? So if you have somebody that is just saying, fighting words to you. I can't really say any of these words on the podcast. But I mean, you can use your imagination as to what they've said to me. If they're just using words and you use mace, that ups it, doesn't it? That increases your situation. That increases you've turned up the volume. You've turned up the heat. So if you use bear mace, they may use a knife. If you use a knife, they may use a bat. I guess a knife and a bat are kind of similar, aren't they? All right. If you use a knife, they use a gun. Them one-upping you. So you do have the chance. You do have the possibility of aggregating the situation or agitating the situation. So I tend to use caution, but I've had to make preemptive decisions sometimes. So the bear mace is more of a get out of my space, I'm threatened kind of thing, and not I'm trying to spray it in your eyes or cause bodily harm. I do carry, this is on my right, and this is something of a baton. And this, I never had the intention of actually using it. It's a deterrent. It keeps people, it creates a buffer, doesn't it? Between you and anybody that might be causing you harm. It's an object that looks like it could do some damage. I have no intention of using this whatsoever. Like actually assaulting somebody with this, I've never had to take it to that level. Never. And I hope I never have to. This would be like a this would be a worst case. If I'm getting attacked in a way that I think is going to cause me serious bodily harm, I'm going to do whatever I can to protect myself. Who wouldn't? But this is more creating space when I feel like I need to. And I've had to demonstrate this, or what's the right word? I've had to take this out and create some space and look like I could cause some harm. And I feel like it almost makes me like I look like I'm official, like I'm some sort of security guard or something. And this has been helpful as a deterrent to make people leave. I've been in rooms where I didn't want to be in the room with that person because they were putting off some pretty scary vibes. And I've taken this out. I've created distance. I've made the appearance that makes it look like I could cause some harm. And people go away. So that's all this really is. This is not, solid steel. It's, flimsy. It's really not made for attack anyways. But that's on my right. The bear mace is on my left. I also have two knives. So one I carry in the right pocket, right next to the baton. This I keep, there's a latch on it though. There's a button that keeps it from being taken. I would have to actually lift the button to take out the knife. And I do this just in case somebody else could get a hold of that knife, because some people, I don't want to have that knife. It's my knife. I have never had to use it. Never. I've never had to take it out. This would be a close contact item if I'm in severe danger. Like I think my life is at stake. I never have any intention of using it. So I do have two knives, because one I carry in my car, and one I carry on my body. Like I said, I keep it buttoned. I have no intention of using it ever. I've never had to use it with another human being. I've had them used on me, but I have not had to myself in the hundreds of abandoned buildings that I've been in. Obviously, flashlight. The flashlight is also to my right, so it goes flashlight, baton, and then knife. And I can, in the dark, fetch what I need to fetch very easily. My most used item is my mace. So basically, I keep it on my, and if you've seen any of my videos, you may have seen some of my videos. I do carry, you'll see this on my arm in just about every abandoned video I've ever made. Because can be hidden, it doesn't really look like, and sometimes I keep it out and put it in my pocket, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm out to cause any harm. So it's kind of up to me whether I want to have it in or not, because it is obviously mace. If you get a good look at it from the inside, you can see that it's mace. So I do keep it on the inside, and there's a few reasons for that. One, I like to keep it hidden from anybody that may encounter me, because I don't want them to think I'm out just causing trouble. I don't want to advertise that I have protection means, just because it can be seen as being offensive. It's like when a dog starts showing its teeth. You might react to that. So I try, when I'm in these abandoned buildings, to not show any teeth when I come across folks, so that I can try and just de-escalate the situation before it's even an issue. Like I said, some people just go back to sleep. Some people don't overreact when they see me. Some people are startled, but I can, say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing in here. You need a couple bucks for a coffee. And that's really what I'm out to do. I'm out to just de-escalate any situation that could potentially happen. I'm not somebody that is looking to harm anybody. Of course, like basic human decency, right? So while I do carry these items, they're really not meant for use. I don't intend on using any of the items that I go into a building with. I never go in a building and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to have to use the old baton for this one. No, it's just the worst case situation, worst case scenario. Because you are putting yourself in a potentially really dangerous situation that you don't. I have the right to protect myself, as does anybody else, especially if somebody is the aggressor and they pose a threat to your safety and your life. I also carry it on the inside because I can easily pull it out, and I've had to do that on a few occasions, and it works very well. This is more of a close range, and I leave the red tap open. And yeah, this is more of a close range item, but it's very, very useful and handy because it doesn't really hurt the other person too badly. It just sort of puts them out of commission for a few minutes, or maybe 30 seconds is more accurate, if that. I've used it when there was no reaction, actually, and didn't really slow the person down much at all. And in that case, I did have to use the bear mace. But in every other situation, it really just puts them out of commission for 10 to 30 seconds. And that's enough for me to escape the situation. So that is, of all the items I use, my hand mace is the one I use the most. And even that is very seldom. I want to really underline that. This doesn't happen much. Maybe it happens less than you even think. It does not happen where I'm in situations where I need bear mace or a knife. It just makes me more comfortable. See, and look, most of these abandoned buildings that I go in, I don't have anything. If I'm in rural Iowa or if I'm in rural Missouri, I'm not going in with anything. I have nothing on my body. There's no knives, there's no mace, there's no bear mace, there's no batons. It's only the worst of the worst that I bring these things. In cities, often I'll just go in with my hand mace. Just to make me feel a little bit better. I don't get the belt out. I don't get the knife. Just the worst case scenario buildings. And I'm talking about maybe in all of the hundreds of abandoned buildings I've been in, 20. Probably 20 have been really dodgy. And in those situations, I'll bring the belt. In 90% of the buildings I go in, I either have nothing or just my hand mace. And often, I won't even have the hand mace on my arm. I'll have it in a pocket where it's not as convenient or fast to get out, but I just am not in any danger. I mean, the odds of something happening are so low. Having said that, I do come across folks in these rural areas once in a blue moon. I think just a couple times. But it's very easy to de-escalate. So, again, as I am showing these items, they're for, 0.5% of the buildings I go in. And I have no intention of using them. They're, worst case of the worst case of the worst case. So that is what I wear for equipment when I'm going into abandoned buildings. As far as clothing, so in most of the cities, I'm wearing muted items. So I'm wearing gray, blue, black, not bright red. Just something that's kind of dull and blends in. I usually have a flat brim just because it's just kind of a look that a lot of folks have in these downtown. It's like kind of the just go to UrbanEx, dangerous areas of the city look, just hide some of my face, put a hoodie up. I don't want to be identified. I don't want to be noticed. I want to be a ghost. I just want to walk through that dangerous part of the city to get where I'm going as a ghost. I don't want you to notice me. I don't want you to come up to me. I'm there for some sort of a purpose. Either, be it uncovering the 5 most dangerous areas of New York City or the 5 most dangerous areas of Memphis. And this is just, what's the reason? The reason is all I'm doing is I'm giving a little bit of an insight, a look into a peephole into something you may not have the time or desire to do in person yourself. I'm just peeking in. I'm lifting the curtain a little bit and I'm peeking under because I'm curious.